What's up, guys? My name is Daniel. I draw cards and turn them into 3D prints using HueForge, and I also do HueForge tutorials for all of you. Today we have Artist Series episode 8, and we are going to feature the artist by the name of Tom Martin. Tom does some really cool artwork. I've seen him drawing over on TikTok. He was live streaming one day, and I found him. He does some really cool artwork, some really cool cartoon styles, does some really cool comic book style. Love what he does over on TikTok. Go check him out. I also have all of his links down in the description. And let's get into today's video. This video is sponsored by New Makers. Want to keep your 3D prints fresh and vibrant? Meet New Makers, your go-to filament for quality, color, and consistency. New Makers has a growing library of colorful 3D printing filament perfect for your next project. They offer some of the brightest colors at very affordable prices. They also have a monthly subscription service, New Box, where you'll receive 2 spools of new colors or special materials and 1 spool of their standard PLA Plus for only $39. If you're looking for quality filament on a budget, go to newmakers.com and use code NeoKoiPrints at checkout for 10% off your next order. Okay, so the first project that we have today is featuring this female ninja. So what we're going to do is, for this particular image, we have a lot of really high contrast colors, which is awesome for HueForge. Makes it super easy to do color match. So we're going to go ahead and head over into that for this particular image. Standard mode, you're never going to get the color separation that you want. You might be able to get a pretty good HueForge out of color aware for this, but I'm just going to use color match. That way we can get the colors exactly where we want them in the mesh. I think it'll just make a better overall result. For this particular image, because it is more of that cartoon style, there aren't a lot of blending effects. We don't have to bring down the layer height, but if there were, you would bring your layer height down from a 0.08 to a 0.04. You can see that there's some smoothing here, but the compromise there is, if we wanted a super smooth shading, then we could come down to 0.04, but then you literally double the print time. So I mean, it's your call. For this situation, I'm not going to bring it down just because we can get most of the detail that Tom has done with this particular piece of art. So with the mesh core, what we need to do first is we are creating the mesh of this HueForge, and then we are going to assign colors to it over when we go over to the color core. And you can see the difference based on this indicator box. I'm double clicking on the mesh core side and the color core side. So like I said, we have to make the mesh first. Whenever you're first developing this mesh, you have to basically figure out what's the background and what is the foreground. So obviously the background is this gray color. We're going to go ahead and turn off all these. So this gray color, so we can either find the closest filament in our library, which I do have this gray color, or we can hit control on our keyboard and we can grab the color out of the image. Now, considering I have most of these colors as real filaments, we're just going to use the real filaments to make this mesh core. That way we can just transfer all of those real colors over to the color core. It makes it way simpler when you have simple images like this. So let's go ahead and we will bring over this gray. I'm going to use Overture's Turbo Gray here. And then we should have the skin tone. I want to say that we have like this peach. Yeah, pastel peach is pretty good. We have this green light color. We should have this green light color. At least something close. Get this gray. Then we need to find this pink. I've got New Makers magenta. We'll go ahead and bring the skin up. We've got a darker magenta. We can probably, I'm just going to bring this in from the image so that we can get more blending effects. For this, for the magenta specifically, I'm going to use fake filaments. When we bring it over into the color core, we can use like a dark red and then a magenta on top. But for now, we're just trying to develop the mesh as close to the image as possible. And we might not want to use this pastel peach either. That would be something. We can bring this in. We can bring this down low. Let's grab the gold effects. So because the gold is on top of the pink area on the swords, it's a hilt, right? I think it's a hilt. We're gonna put that on top of the pink. It's on the green as well, so it'll still print on top of the green. So when I zoom in, you can see that it's printing on top of the pink areas. which is good. That's what we want. And then it's also printing on top of the green areas. So when it's printing on top of the green areas, it's just going to be a little bit thicker, which is not a bad thing. It'll just give it a little bit more depth on the shoes. So next thing we need to do is we need to grab probably hair color, maybe blade color. We have some eyeshadow here. It looks like a really bright pink. We can bring that just above the magenta areas. Hair color probably needs to be above the blade stuff. Then we can bring this in to make the mesh a little bit different. Okay, so because we brought this gray in, you can see that the green no longer is matching. So we'll go ahead and turn this off, and we'll actually just bring in the green that we see so that it'll match up perfectly. And we know, we know in our heads that that's going to be the filament that we used. So not a big deal there either, just like the magenta. So I think that this looks pretty good. If I zoom in, let me turn on wireframe. The outline is raised, and the outline is raised because if we hover over it, you can see that it's matching to the same color as the hair. So we could technically bring the hair down, but this is one of those compromises that you have to make. We can either keep the hair up top on the mesh to where it's the tallest part of the mesh, and then the outline is also tall, which I think is fine. I really don't think that that is a game changer for this particular image. I know with my car designs that I do, I like having a thick outline and a thick border. So I'm going to leave it that way, but if you wanted to, you could easily just grab this and bring it all the way down. And now you're printing on top of that black. So just keep that in mind. It's one of those compromises that you have to make whenever you're making these HueForges. Everything else looks pretty good. We can bring in this black if we want more contrast. So there are also spikes. You usually just want to turn on fast spike removal, and that cleans up those edges. That's just the nature of color match. It's trying to match directly to each pixel. HueForge is very much good at doing that, so that's why we have to turn on spike removal. So now that we have our base mesh, this is just the mesh. This isn't like actually how it's going to print. We have to come over to the color core. Now we can add filaments that we actually have in our library. So we can right click on the image and find the closest colors. I think Lagoon Blue looks the best here. We can find that Sunblue Gray again. I'm going to bring this black up to 14. Just go ahead and get that out of the way. Then we can find some skin tones. I'm pretty sure the apricot skin would look really good here. I haven't gotten to test it yet, but I think that it would do really well. What TD is it, a 3? Well, we use the army beige here, so we'll just keep using that. That way we don't have to bring the entire mesh up, because then we're starting to run out of room as far as colors are concerned. And then we can stack either peach. I don't know why it thinks that atomic pink is the closest. I would not call that. In what world do those look close? We have that pastel peach that we can stack on top to give it just some shadowing. I don't really have any darker colors necessarily for that. So we're going to settle. That would be one of the compromises that we're making here. And then we have our black filament. We can turn off our blue-gray, and we can turn off our regular gray. And now we need to find our magenta. Well, while we're here, we'll just use Lotus Pink. We're not going to use Lotus Pink, I lied. Let's find magentas. So I have Polylight Magenta. And then I've also got New Maker's Magenta. And we might actually just want to use a different pink here. Let me see what kind of pinks I have. I forget. Atomic Pink might work the best here. It's just not as it doesn't seem to be as saturated, I guess. You don't really have, like, we have the detail here, but we don't have much detail. Like you can see in the actual image, we've got the shading. And I think that that's just because of, yeah, there we go. It's just because of the placements and the TDs of these filaments. We use that Sunblue Meta Gray again. What did we use here? New Maker's Dark Gray. We got Midnight Gray. That actually is probably going to be way more on point. What's going on with her eye here? We'll figure that out in a second. One step at a time. So now we need to find this darker orange-ish color. Rust Copper, probably perfect for that. We'll use New Maker's Bahama Yellow. So we can use Pastel Ice here to give us that blue effect. And then I should have a low TD white in Polyterra's Cotton White. And you don't have to do it the way that I'm doing it here where I'm using a bunch of one-offs. So there we go. That is a completed HueForge. And I think that it looks really good. So anyways, let's get into project number 2. All right, so project number 2. This one's going to be way easier than our Ninja Girl because really we've only got 3 main colors and all of them are blending from dark to light. So this should be pretty simple. I would say maybe 10 colors tops. So in standard mode, impossible. Color pop mode, this is not the image to use color pop for. You could probably do it in color aware. If you were in an image editor and you change this to red, it'd probably make it a lot easier on you if you were using color aware. But again, color match is just superior in this way. Like we have control over exactly where we want the meshes. So we can go ahead and let's turn off all these colors. We'll go ahead and bring in our blue down low. We'll bring in our lightest area here, and then we will hit T on our keyboard, and we're going to scroll up to adjust the TD of that filament. That way we get all the blending range that we want so that we have these blends here. If you want to get a smoother transition here, then you would want to go ahead and bring it to 0.04. And you can see that we have a little bit more of a smooth transition on that mesh. But this doubles the print time. So, you know, it's up to you on what you want to do there. I'll just use 0.08 just due to not having crazy blends going on here. But again, you can do whatever you'd like as far as that's concerned. Now, I feel like the eyes would be better on top, but they look like they're sunken in with the glow effect coming out. So we might just go ahead and start with that green and then bring that darker green. I'll start with dark, put light on top, and then we can use T again. Give us some more of that blending range for just the eyes. And then we'll do the same thing for the body. We'll grab the darkest area. It doesn't have to be on the bottom. It can be on the top. And then we will hit T on our keyboard and bring it up. And it looks like we need black for the outline. So again, like the last one, well, this is orange or brown, orange. There we go. It's matching up pretty good. Like I said, I personally like it when the outline is very noticeable and very easy to see for these cartoon effects. It really, really brings that 3D effect around when you're feeling these HueForges. So I'm going to leave that on top. I just like the outline on top. But you could totally sink this down below the eyes. Let's bring it here. And you can see now that the panels are on top. The robot's on top of the outline. Like I said, just personal preference there. We didn't really have any spikes, which is pretty impressive for any color match, really. There's a little bit here, but it's nothing like crazy. So if we turn on fast, I think it looks fine. Yeah, so that's such a simple way of doing a color match is just getting your darkest color, getting your lightest color, and then adjusting the TDs for your mesh. Now, whether or not you actually have the colors in this TD, that's, to be determined. But what's great is if you don't, and you have like 3 different of these blues, so if I have this particular blue, this light blue, and then somewhere in between, I can just use 3 filaments. I don't have to just have a really high TD lighter blue. And you'll see that compromise because I definitely don't have, this in like a 5 TD, a light blue and a 5 TD. Blues are very much hard to find in those higher TDs. So I've got Azure Blue from Polylight or from Polymaker. Let's turn off all of these. I don't need any of these. So we'll start off with that. Let's grab Overture's Light Blue. We'll bring this in about here. And light blue being a 3.5, we get some blending. We don't get a crazy amount. It looks pretty close though. You could also use like a white. So if I have Polysonic white. Let's grab that. 7 TD. So now you get more of that blending effect. There's less stair stepping. So let's go ahead, and I actually have grass green for the base color of the eyes, and then like, I don't know. I think they have fluorescent green, perfect color for this. I just looked at it on the shelf. I think that it's going to turn out great in the print. And then we need some kind of like lighter brown. So let's use rust copper. Perfect. Couldn't have asked for a better color. Also new makers. And then I think their apricot might actually work pretty well here. We might use pastel peach. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So the reason that we're getting this green area is because you can see where it's blending from that green to the brown. So a good way to counteract that is if we disable this layer, and then we come back over to the color core, and now we can bring it down so that we're not, we're not in this part of the mesh, in the body of this. And then all we need is that dark brown, and we are good to go. Let me get... New Makers has a good chocolate brown. Yeah, perfect. Perfect. So there we go. I don't see anything else that we really need to work on here. Again, it doesn't look amazing here because HueForge doesn't have a way to render light. But like, I'm looking at fluorescent green right now as I'm doing this HueForge, and I think that it's going to look perfect for this. We're definitely printing this one out. And we have one more to work through that has a little bit more color going on. So yeah, let's get into it. All right, on to the final image. Again, huge shout out to Tom. Thank you for letting me use your work for these HueForges. Love the art style. Keep doing what you're doing. Now, for everybody else, the problems that I see right out the gate. The image, obviously beautiful. The problems that we're going to run into with HueForge is you can see these blue areas. They're going to match here with these blue areas. So wherever we decide to put, because we're going to use color match for this, obviously. We can't use standard ColourPop or colorware for this. There's too many things going on. But what's going to happen is if we put this shirt like up higher on the mesh, then the eyes are going to be up higher on the mesh. And like, let's say that the body's low on the mesh, then it's going to look like this guy has binocular eyes, and it might it might not look the best. So there are going to be some compromises that we have to make. I mean, you look at the background and it's white. You've got whites in the eyes here. So it's, yeah, there are going to be some compromises that we have to make along the way, and we're going to figure out what looks the best overall. So we'll go ahead and turn off these filaments. I'm going to not focus on real filaments. I'm just going to drag from the image because it's going to be a challenge finding these colors, all of these colors anyways. And another thing is, because there's so many different color ranges here, we're going to have to make it a little bit thicker. No big deal. We just increase our max depth. Now we have a little bit more room to work with. And there is a little bit more detail in this image than the last two, so we're going to go ahead and drop it down to 0.04. Now we have a lot of room to mess around with different color blends and such. So what I see as the background is obviously white. I think that white, you bring that in at the lowest point for sure. The next thing that I see would be your green areas, and you can see that what's happening right now, the reason that white is not up, where it was in the last image, is here we can see that it's at 0.32 layer height, and our min depth for this is 0.48. So it's below the minimum depth for this mesh. So if we just bring it up a little bit, you can see now that it starts to match. So that's something that you'll probably run into when you start doing color match. Just be aware of that. Now we can adjust the TD of the green. to get some of that area. It's kind of hard to see when we're only working with green. So let me go ahead and grab the blue. So something that we can do here, we'll keep bringing this blue up, or this green up, and then we can grab the blue and bring the TD up just a hair. So there we go so far. Okay, so we'll come back on the background. No big deal. Let's go ahead and we'll start using the browns here for the boots with the fur. And we'll hit T on brown and blend up again. I'm trying to get the lighter areas to come through on the boots. I think we're gonna need this black, if I can even grab it. Let's just grab the black from here. And then the next color that I would want to use, this is looking okay. This is looking okay. We might need this darker blue. And this lighter blue. I'm still seeing some of that green area. So let's bring these blues next to each other. The problem is that we'll have the green farther back in the mesh. So that might cause some issues. So let's go ahead and we're going to grab these blues, bring them down. Down low, we'll bring black and brown up. And that way we keep the color ranges together. Remember how I said that we would have issues with the eyes here because of this? You can see that now that they're going to be in the same color ranges, but we're not going to have binocular eyes because we want the blues down in the lower part. It just might be when you print this, it would feel like, you know, they're sunken in like deeper holes. But that's okay. Right now, you can't really see that much because our depth is only 1.28. Like this is the mesh area right now. All of this is just room for us to blend in the future. So you can't really see that effect just yet, but we will get there. Let's grab for the shield. Let's go ahead and start trying to match up the edges of the shield and the sword. That looks really good. We've got this darker blue, and then we need to bring in some more of these greens. I'm not sure why it's trying to match up here. There we go, but that might cause some issues. I don't think I have a... Well, I have the khaki from New Makers. This might work. This might be okay. We'll see. We'll play around with the pants later. I just wanted to get the green right. Can go ahead and bring in hair color. We should really grab this area. And then we'll hit T. Give us some blending room. And then what we can do is grab skin tones. So I'm going to hit control on the keyboard at orange. We're going to bring that up so that I can put skin tones in between the green and the orange areas. Just because in the image it looks like, you know, the skin is down low and the hair is on top. Just makes sense. So that's one part of the image done, I would say. So now what we need to do is we need to work on the red of the area, and we need to bring in some... The browns are mixing pretty well, or it's matching pretty well down here, so we might not have to mess with it. The only thing is that we have to make the decision on if we want the brown in the... What is this, a kilt, a skirt? I don't know how to explain this. If we want the brown in the skirt and the brown in the boots and the brown in the club, we need to figure out where we want them in the mesh. And for me personally, I want them down low. I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference whether it's up high or not. The only difference is the club feeling might be a little wonky, but overall it looks pretty good the way it is. But what's going to happen is that the hands are going to be on top of this, so I think it's going to look okay in general, but this 3D effect of it, you know, of it coming towards us, that might not look like what you would think. But everything else is going to look good. A little bit more saturation. We could probably just bring it in right here. And that looks pretty freaking good, to be honest. We don't have to do too much work here. I want the nose to be really pink. And then we can grab this, bring that up top. And we could probably hit T, make it a little bit of a softer blend. So the thing that we need to work on now is the background, of course. I think the best course of action here would be to grab this and leave it as saturated as we see here. Now the problem is this white area is matching down low right at the white. So we need to hit T on this particular blue, and we can get more blending range in between. And I'm not sure what color it's trying to match here. So this could be problematic. I think it looks okay. All things considered, I think this looks really good where we're at now. So I think that we will keep it the way it is. This green that it's matching, it definitely looks green right here, like a yellowish green. So HueForge is doing its thing the way that it needs to. So we didn't need all of this room up here. You can see that our actual depth is just 2.4. Most likely we could bring it all the way up if we wanted to. I guess we could try to work with the skull a little bit. But then you can see that the grass is, for some reason, matching all the way up here. And we definitely don't want that. So I don't think that we're going to mess with that. I think that that is a compromise that we'll just leave here. I think it'll look fine. Something else to consider is we do have some spikes. You can see some spikes here on the edge. Just color match things. So spike removal, turn on fast, and you lose all the spike areas. Something that I'm noticing is that we don't have the darker brown areas or the darker orange areas, like the outline for this guy. So let's, there we go. There we go. Way more detail. All right, so let's go ahead and we will start adding actual filaments to the color core. Yeah, let's start adding some real filaments to it. I think this is going to look really great. So yeah, so we will drag, we're just going to start matching it up the best that we can, and then we will make compromises as we see fit. Let's grab our chrominal blue, and we'll bring that in up top. We're going to put that at about 19. You can see that since it's such a high TD, we get all of that blending range in between these areas, which is good. That's what we want. And then we can stick a light blue all the way at the top. So let's do that here at 21. And then we have a brown. I have chrominal brown that's pretty high at 3.8. And that looks pretty good. I think we might even be able to put in like chocolate brown from New Makers. It's a little bit darker. And that'll give us a little bit more detail here. We might not need that chestnut. No, I think we want chestnut actually. And if I was trying to stick to the bare minimum colors, we wouldn't necessarily need it. So next we need a gray. Let's grab dark gray. We'll put that at 31. We need that khaki. Bring that in at 32. And then we need some greens. So Overture's light green is really good here. And then we can move over to something like sample green would be pretty good. Maybe even forest green might look a little bit better, more natural. We need that apricot color from New Maker. Apricot skin is really good for these kinds of tones. And then I've got, it might be a little bit too high of a TD for where we're at right now. So let's go ahead and we'll bring this up. Make it a little bit thicker. I'm hitting control on my keyboard to bring up the entire mesh. But that way we're right on the TD that we need to be. We'll play around a little bit more with this. Let me grab that peach. Polymaker. And then we can grab... That looks more orange than yellow, so... Let's see what orange I have. Don't want to use fluorescent orange. I think I have, yeah, sunrise orange would probably be good here. Let's flip these. That'll be 53. It's going to be 49. We might actually have something a little bit closer, but not by much. Yeah, so sunrise orange is going to be the best that I have. And then we will grab a yellow. Lemon yellow is good. It's perfect for this. You can see we're getting those good blends. Something like this looks pretty good. Something along those lines. And then we need a magenta. And again, to move stuff from a certain point, like if I want to move white down and all of this area down, you just hit control on your keyboard and then you can mouse wheel. And then we have that copper. Rust copper. There we go. So, I think that looks good overall. With all the compromises we had to make, I think that looks pretty good. We can see if we turn it to the side, you can see how thick certain areas of this HueForge are, especially if you turn on wireframe. You can really see the thickness of it. So I think that this is going to look really cool. Let's turn on moderate. I just want to see what different spike removals are doing. If we turn it on moderate, we lose all the really thin outline, so I don't want to do too much of that. But... oh, that's funny. This is way up there, huh? So with the hand and the symbols being way up there in the red area, let's grab straight from the picture so that we're not matching up here. We'll bring this in. Well, I figured that would help. It did not. So what if we disable these? No, it's still not going to help. So this is one of those compromises that we'll have to make, unfortunately. Why are these all... oh, these are all meshing with something else. There we go. So since I disabled the layers right here, now we're not fighting the green as much. It's just not trying to match up the skin right here. It's not going to try to match it until we get all the way up to here. So it's going to print out 4 layers of that skin tone to give us that lower TD effect. So if we move the green on the mesh core up, that way it gives us more room for this blend to happen. And we get a better result overall for the areas on the club and the skin tone and the hair. So overall, it's just a better image. And that is how many colors are we on this? 18. My God. We're gonna print it. You know, I have multiple AMSs, but you know, HueForge is all swapped by layers, so it just might take me a little bit of time. But this is gonna be a good one. I'm excited to see how this one turns out. we will get to printing it, and I will be right back with the results. And with that, that is the end of this week's Artist Series episode. Thank you again, Tom Martin, for being a part of the Artist Series. If you are a digital artist or photographer and want to be a part of the Artist Series and see your work turned into 3D prints, feel free to reach out to me either in the comments of this video or email me at neokoiprints@gmail.com. Huge shout out to New Makers for being a part of the Artist Series and sponsoring this series. You guys allow me to send all of these 3D prints to their respective artists. This week, we have this beautiful print. Look at this thing. This came out awesome. 10 out of 10. Would recommend. Looks amazing. A lot of the New Makers colors really looks amazing in this one. I love the way that the final result is. The Link HueForge, on the other hand, 18 different colors. Now, why did I use 18 different colors on this? As you could see with the base image, we wanted one-to-one results. And with one-to-one results, you're going to have to use a lot of filament. Could I have used less? Absolutely. But I didn't want to compromise on certain colors. So with that, 18 is the way we went. So again, huge shout out to everybody that supports this channel, whether through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. I really appreciate you guys as well. If this video helped you in any way, shape, or form, please like, subscribe, share with your friends. I would really appreciate it. And I hope you learned something.